guys. Right, so this week I've borrowed a book from Mrs. Scott because we're hoping some of the year 1 and 2s and 3s, 4s, and anybody else might like to join us with our story. So this one is called Tyrannasaurus Drip, and it's another Julia Donaldson. We love the Julia Donaldson. Let's see. In a swamp beside a river where the land was thick with veg lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the water's edge. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. Got their long like snouts. Hang on, can you see it there? There you go. It's like hooters. Now across the rushy river, on a hill the other side, lived a mean Tyrannosaurus with his grim and gristly bride. And they shouted up with hunting, and they shouted up with war, and they shouted up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur. But the two Tyrannosauruses, so gristly, mean and grim, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim. And they muttered down with water, and they muttered down with wet, and they muttered what a shame that bridges aren't invented yet. Now a little Compsognathus, but for short we'll call her Comp, found a duckbill egg and stole it from a nest beside the swamp. And she swam with it and ran with it and ran with it and ran with it and murmured, "Clever me, and won't the baby Comps be thrilled with duckbill egg for..." Look, it's there down there, can you see it? Tea! She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosaurus with his grim and gristly wife. And the duckbill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in all unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus nest. Now the mother tea had great big jaws and great enormous legs, but her brain was rather little, and she couldn't count her eggs. And she sang, "Hatch out, my little terrors, with your scaly little tails, and your spiky little toothies, and your scary little nails." Can you see them in the nest down there starting to hatch? Out hatched babies 1 and 2, as perfect as could be. But Mother T was horrified by baby number 3. And she grumbled, "He looks weedy." And she grumbled, "He looks weak." And she grumbled, "What long arms! And look, his mouth is like a beak." And they're all 3 there in the nest. The other 2 looking a bit aghast. What on earth is that? "He just needs feeding up," said Dad, and gave the babe some meat. The first 2 gulped and guzzled, but the third refused to eat. And he said, "I'm really sorry." And he said, "I just simply can't." And he said, "This meat looks horrible. I'd rather eat a plant." I think he's a herbivore. Those are carnivores, aren't they? So they eat meat, or they might be an omnivore. They eat meat and plant. Let's have a look. "A plant?" yelled Mum in horror, and Dad said, "Get a grip." His sisters found a name for him, Tyrannosaurus Drip. And they shouted up with hunting, and they shouted up with war, and they shouted up with bellyfills of duck-billed dinosaur. Poor Tyrannosaurus Drip tried hard to sing along, but the others yelled, "You silly Drip, you've got the words all wrong." For he hooted down with hunting, and he hooted down with war, and he hooted down with bellyfills of duck-billed dinosaur. There's some little eyes peeping out there. Can you see them on the page? Watching what on earth's going on. Drip's sis soon grew big enough to hunt with Mum and Dad, but they turned on Drip and told him, "You're not fierce enough to come." And he cried, "They've gone without me." And he cried, "Alack-a-day." And he cried, "This doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away." How mean their eyes are. Can you see how mean and scary their eyes are? I wonder how he's feeling, look. Maybe a bit sad and left out. It's not nice when people aren't kind to you. Oh, who's that little one down there? Not sure where he's come from. So he ran off to the river where he saw a lovely sight, a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs all hooting with delight. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. And he stood there on the bank. A sudden urge took hold of him, and he jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the rushy river's edge, and they hooted, "Nice to see you," and they hooted, "Have some veg." Look at that little one down there. It's a snail with an armour-plated shell. And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of water weeds and played with them all day. Then he gazed into the river and he asked them, who is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you." And you see them looking at the reflection there, look. That's a bit like the Ugly Duckling story. That night the lightning crackled and a storm blew down a tree, and it fell across the river, and the tees cried out, "Yippee!" And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-bill dinosaur." Drip's sisters stepped onto the bridge, but then began to frown, for there in front of them stood Drip, who yelled, "Look out! Look down!" And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp, and one cried, "Water monsters!" and the other cried, "Help!" You can see them there. It's their own reflections, look. Silly things. Their mother scolded nonsense, and she joined them on the tree. Then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Good gracious me!" The three of them stood trembling, and Dad said, "Get a grip. You're all of you as drippy as Tyrannasaurus Drip." He strode onto the bridge and scoffed, "I bet there's nothing there." Then he looked into the water and he jumped into the air. Look, you can see his reflection down the bottom. And how the duckbills hooted when he landed with a crash, and the tree bridge broke and 4 Tyrannosaurus went splash. Look, there's volcanoes there, look. That's like in our dinosaur worlds. And spluttering and clinging to the branches of the tree, they went whooshing down a waterfall and all the way out to sea. There's some sort of little critter down there, look, going, "See ya." And the duckbills hooted happily. They shouted, "Hip, hip, hooray!" for the heroic one and only Duck-bill Drip. Look how proud he's looking there, look. Oh, that's a nice ending, that one. I quite like that one. Thank you for letting me borrow that one, Mrs. Scott. If you have any favourite stories that you'd like me to try and see if I've got at home, just pop them in the comments underneath and I'll try and read them. And if you like this sort of story, funny ones or about some with a bit of a moral to them, put a like and then I'll try and find some more. See you all soon, guys. Be good. Bye.